So first of all, thank you very much for being here today and also to make the decision that you will be participating in Gulfood in 2024. And I believe it's based on the success that we have had. And I think one of the successful participant is here with us today, which is John. And thank you, John, and thank you, team, for being here today. So as we present this, the objective is to make you understand what is the market that you are planning to get into in the month of February 2024, right? As you participate in Gulfood. The objective is also to help you understand the types of customers and the kind of preference for the products that we all have over here in the region. And when I say region, we'll slowly see the region consists of about 13 countries. Okay, so the idea is to make you better understand about the market dynamics and also to help you understand how to prepare yourself for participation or partnership at Gulfood in 2024. What is the main thing? And there's a lot which has changed since last time to this time. And this time, this year, the mantra for successful participation is sustainability. We are looking at sustainable methods. We are looking at sustainably grown food. We are looking at sustainable packaging, all of this. And it's all consistent with the COP28, the UN conference on sustainability that we are hosting in this month. And the entire country and the leadership believes in sustainability. And F&B is not an exception to that. So ongoing, we will see how it is going to develop for us and what is it that we should do about it. Yeah, next slide, please. The agenda is here. You all have it. What I want to help you understand is the map next to that, right? We are a very small country, which is the United Arab Emirates, marked here as UAE. To the south, we have Oman. And to the northwest, we have Qatar. And we have a larger country, which is Saudi Arabia, okay, which all of us know about. And then further down, we have Bahrain and Kuwait, right? So you will see that these are the 6 countries which form, which is nothing but the Gulf Cooperation Council. And I did not mention there is one more, which you can see here as Muscat, the city, and Oman as the country. That also forms Gulf Cooperation Council. So when I mention the word UAE or the United Arab Emirates, it will essentially lead to the 6 countries which are together in more than one ways in terms of trade dynamics. And we will learn what are those trade dynamics about. Moving on. Today we have 6 of you here, and we have Mary from Muni Farms. We have John, Craig, Ben, Juliana, and Wahid, right? Each one of you have unique products, and we have tried to make the presentation ready to address most of your products, except for USA Foods. I did not exactly understand the range that they will be bringing in, but at the same time, it's not too late. I can always learn from it later and guide you appropriately, specific to each one of your product range that you are going to bring in here. Moving on, next slide, yeah. These are some of the abbreviations. Those who were present last year know these terms. You will see it as I talk. You will be coming across this. ME is Middle East, which is a group of 13 countries. All the countries that you hear about, from Iran, Iraq, Jordan, all of those, and the other countries. GCC, as I said, is the Gulf Cooperation Council of 6 countries, which we just mentioned, with UAE at the heart of it, which is United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, Kuwait, and Bahrain. Okay. MENA constitutes Middle East and North Africa. That is when we take into consideration countries like Morocco and further down maybe Libya. But that's not the scope of the work here. I'm just trying to inform you about it. KSA stands for Saudi Arabia. UAE is the United Arab Emirates. And GDP, of course, will be gross domestic product. PPP is purchasing power parity. Okay. Going on, we'll also see the definition of consumer-oriented foods, which are nothing but dairy, foods, fresh fruit, poultry, meat, nuts, beef, chocolate, cocoa, and fresh vegetables, including wine and beer. Last year at this time, I was hesitant to include wine and beer, but this year I'm not. And slowly we'll see why. Next, please. So just a quick review. The circle depicts the largest circle being the Middle East, 13 countries which are here, with GCC as the inner circle, okay, the yellow and the golden color circle. And at the heart of all of this is UAE. So what happens is, when you bring in anything into the UAE, you're not only looking at one country of UAE as your target market, but you are looking at the entire yellow circle, which is GCC, followed by the entire Middle East as your target market. And that is the big picture that you need to have in mind when you come and participate at Gulfood. Next, please. This is a slide which we have not changed since last year, purely because some parameters have changed, some parameters have not yet been updated. So we don't want to create confusion with different sources of information and parameters. What does the slide tell us? In a nutshell, it tells us that UAE is a small country of only 10 million population. Coming from US, of course, it would sound to be, one of the states' population from US, but that's how small we are in terms of the population of the country, which is 10 million. Okay, but the biggest country is within the GCC is Saudi Arabia, and within the Middle East is, of course, Egypt, which is in excess of 80 million people as a population. Now, that is when you think about the big picture. Looking back again at GCC, the 6 countries which are in front of you, we're looking at a total population of about 50 to 55 million people. But what is it that makes us all different from the rest of the world? GCC, and in particular, UAE and as you can see, partly KSA and Kuwait, we all have a large expatriate population. And all this large expatriate population is a working population, right? So they are also a significant part of your consumers. Focusing on UAE alone, we can also see our per capita income or per capita income on PPP basis is quite high. It's very much comparable to the income in US. But as a smaller country and with less population, the income that we earn as PPP goes a long way, more so when the government is focusing on 70% of the revenue to come from non-oil exports. Okay, when it's an oil exports, it's easy to be rich, like Qatar. It's oil and gas for Qatar, but for us, it's also 70% of our income is coming out of non-oil exports, and that is significant. And we will see what are the drivers of that economy. One of those being tourism, and when there are tourists, you will see, of course, the hotel occupancies will be high, and you'll have so many more people going to eat the food that you're going to sell in this market, right? And we have also given a perspective about what are the top 10 exports value from US. For UAE, it is 820 million. It sounds less, but when you look at Saudi Arabia at 961 million, with 3.6 times the population, okay, we are only marginally lower. So it just shows you the consumption levels in UAE on per person basis are very high compared to the ones in any other country. Yeah, moving on. Yeah, so we are now going to focus on some of the country facts about UAE. Okay, as we said, we are talking about a round number of 10 million people, and it's one of the richest countries in the world. However, due to limited arable land and increasing climate issues, water shortage, of course, that we have, okay, we continue to be heavily dependent on food imports. So at least 90% of our food is imported to meet with the requirements of the entire population or the country, right? So of course, we have limitation on how much of agriculture that we can grow. Of course, we don't have much of a limitation on, let's say, fish or seafood, because we also have farms as well as we have the sea. Okay, then on meat also we prefer to import beef from US, Angus beef, and as far as fruits and vegetables and nuts are concerned, we are primarily an imports economy. even though we have small attempts made at hydroponics and vertical farming for growing our own vegetables, but those are primarily greens for salads and for, vegetables like spinach and roca, etc. Right? So 90% of our requirements are met by imports. Going forward, we are talking about, importantly, this 90% translates into nearly 14 billion of total imports, okay, in the last 2 years in the UAE, 2 years ago. So that is significant in terms of food consumption. Further to that, some things about geography. Our country is called United Arab Emirates. So it is a union of 7 emirates, which you can see here, Abu Dhabi being the capital of the country. Dubai is the commercial capital of the country. The president is from Abu Dhabi and the vice president is from Dubai. Prime minister is from Dubai. And all the other emirates have a significant role to play, as well as they are quite independent in making their own rules and regulations. But everybody in turn works together along with Abu Dhabi and Dubai, because these are the 2 emirates which primarily support the other 5 emirates. Okay, now we just discussed this. We are one of the first countries to extend a hand of friendship and diplomacy to Israel. Okay, so we are a very tolerant and forward country in that sense. And that has led to even Saudi Arabia, going and making friends with Israel. And these are all very important changes in the region, which are leading to different habits and lifestyle changes. Moving on. What we are known in the world is about everything being bigger and better, no doubt. Okay, you look at Burj Khalifa, which means the Tower of Khalifa. You look at Dubai Mall, you look at Burj Al Arab with the largest helipad where even Roger Federer has played tennis, and where CNN anchor goes and gives news from at times. And then we have Museum of the Future. I was personally very fascinated by the concept of Museum of the Future, because usually museums are for the history and historical things that we have learned. But this is indeed the Museum of the Future, because it actually tells you how future will unfold with AI and all the other technologies that we use. And most of the things in this museum are AI driven. All of us, those who will be staying at the hotel, will be able to have Museum of the Future view from your rooms. Okay. We are also, as you all know, 2 years ago, we also hosted Expo 2020 that we hosted in 2021. Okay. Now, this is in terms of what we have been able to build as a country and what we are famous for. But what we are also very much famous for is trading. Okay. Dubai World is the largest port, or the second largest port in the world and largest port in the region. It's technologically very advanced, and all the facilities that they offer are extremely fast. So clearances of the goods and the storage facilities is something that is extremely advanced, and it's the state of the art. So we get our goods cleared, even food cleared, within 3 to 5 working days at the most. That includes all the testing, compliance requirements, everything gets tested and the goods come out of the port. So you don't have to pay extra for storage in the port because the goods are waiting to be cleared. That's one, right? One of the pillars of the economy now is tourism. Okay, and that is significant because we are a population of 10 million, but we have had tourism worth 20 million last year. So we have more than twice the number of people to serve with hotels and restaurants. And that's where you have to think about your business as well. We are a very tolerant country. So we build this beautiful mosque that was built a few years ago. There are temples and then there are churches, right? So all of this helps us to have a very diverse and tolerant economy. Right now, as we speak, all the preparations are in place to host COP28, the United Nations Summit for Sustainability and Energy Conservation, right? And we are all working towards that. Moving on. So that is why the mantra, as I said, is sustainability. sustainable health and sustainable environment are the two key things. So in the past few years, the country has introduced a lot of initiatives in terms of environment and trying to use less amount of plastic, etc. And how has that translated into consumer behavior? Okay, so as we talk as food manufacturers and food suppliers, we have two distinct customers, right? We have hospitality industry that buys our food and then serves, and then we have the end user or the consumer themselves. So let's see how both these have been impacted because of the government policy of sustainability. Okay, in hospitality industry, the sustainability and the practices related to that are becoming extremely popular. So there is something called as the 4.0 technologies. It's like a benchmark, just as much as we have it for 5G for communications or telecom. There is a 4.0 technology for hospitality, and all the hotels are trying to get their digitization up to the level to ensure that they're compliant with all the processes tracked for sustainability in F&B. Now, all of this, what does that mean? It means if you have any sustainable practice that you follow in your food production or packaging, do not hesitate to mention it on your label. Do not hesitate to mention it when you meet with your potential buyers, because that way you will have an edge over the others who have not yet talked or thought about sustainability. Okay, so this is one of the points to be remembered. Yeah, moving on. Okay. For consumers, COVID was a jolt. It was a wake-up call, and current initiatives. We all believe in eating healthy and organic options. Okay, so from the government, for example, there are three things that the government introduced in that context. First one is that they introduced something called as excise tax on tobacco consumption quite a few years ago. Okay, quite a few years ago. So now tobacco has a tax of over 100% if anyone has to buy it. So they have made tobacco extremely inaccessible in terms of price, as well as there are in public places, no one is allowed to smoke, right? So that automatically curtails the availability of tobacco as well as the possibility of people smoking in public places. That's one. Second thing is there is a huge tax even on alcohol, which of course it has always been there. And importantly, they have also introduced something called as sugar tax or excise tax on aerated beverages such as Coke and Pepsi and all the other sodas, right? So that's sugar tax. There is a sugar tax even on mixes which have sugar content in it, like tea premixes or Nescafe mix with sugar and milk powder and coffee in it, all in one. Anything which has sugar in it, they have introduced a sugar tax by 50%. So it's a 50% of the retail price. So when you manufacture your products, okay, I'm talking about snacks and ready to eat foods, depending on the sugar content, you will have to be aware that it will attract a huge amount of tax, because in our countries, obesity and diabetes rank very high as diseases. Okay, and the top mortality reasons are, of course, the heart trouble, as well as the heart failure is a top reason, followed by cancer. But the population does suffer from obesity and diabetes, and hence all these things are in place to make sure that we all stay healthy. This has led all of us to make even healthier choice about food. So we are very conscious about usage of pesticides. We are very conscious about the organic nature of food and why we should eat organic foods. So we place a lot of emphasis on reading labels and how it will help in keeping better health. Next. Okay, the important thing is once upon thought protein has to be animal protein, but today we believe no, it has to be an alternative source of protein, right from vegan proteins and anything else that can give us protein more than animal protein. And of course, beyond that, to supplement our diet, we are making a lot of use of nutraceuticals, which are based on vegan diet as well as nature produced nutraceuticals. So these are all the practices that we follow, including food waste reduction. That's key. And all the hotels are very conscious about it, and so are the producers. Yeah, next. I am not going to spend much more time on this slide. There are enough of trade agreements between UAE and USA. It essentially means that we give preferential treatment for products made in USA. On the other hand, there are certain, our tax structures are at the minimum. So these are anyways not affected by the agreement. It's just that we prefer to buy goods from USA, not only because of the agreements, or the agreements are in place because we believe in the quality of US goods. Okay, so the agreements have been there. We prefer to buy goods from US, and we also have certain basic tax structures which do not change. Yeah. Next. This is one more slide, and it also tells you across Middle East how you have trade agreements. But again, this is more about preferential treatment than about tax reductions. Yeah, next one. Yeah. Now here is where some of the key facts as to how this preferential treatment has resulted into what numbers, right? So this slide talks about the total trade. It does not talk about food trade alone. It talks about the total trade. So from our bilateral trade, that means both import and export, total 23 billion in 2021. Okay, with US exporting $17 billion worth of goods and services to the UAE. And importantly, there was a significant increase also over 2020, right? And again, there's a trade surplus for US of $11 billion. And this is significant because a small country like ours, okay, was the sixth largest trade surplus globally for US. Then, as I mentioned before, our focus is to have 70% of our GDP come from non-oil resources, and that's what makes it an imports-driven economy get much stronger, with imports of electronics, of course, nuclear materials, passenger vehicles, and aircraft and spacecraft, and ammunition, right? Now, we trade with all the 50 US states, okay? But there are, of course, some of the top states that you will see in a minute from now. And there are we also support 123,000 jobs, and we like that very much. And hopefully, as we move forward, we'll be able to support many more. And there are more than one way of doing that, and that will come to that. Okay, so next slide, please. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so what we're talking about is now the top 10 states, and you can see here what is it that they export. This is from the UAE embassy in the US, and this is all information which is for you. Nice to know, and read it at your leisure. Next slide. Now we're talking about food here, okay? Based on US Department of Agriculture Affairs office in Dubai, okay, the total exports of consumer-oriented agricultural products to the UAE was 1.03. That means 1.03 billion. That means that UAE imported from all over the world total import of 1.03 billion worth of consumer-oriented products. Okay, and this increased in 2021. Okay, I mean, this increase was 15% versus 2021. Now, in addition to that, okay, we also imported about $500 million worth of tree nuts, which was a growth of 26% versus the previous year, and this was in 2022. Right. Now, out of this 1.03, okay, US exports of consumer-ready products to UAE was 1 billion, which is significant. So you are a major contributor of consumer-ready products to UAE from US, right? Next. Okay, now there are different years that we have discussed. Earlier we discussed 2022 and this is 2021. So it also shows you who are your competitors on country basis in terms of exporting consumer ready products to the UAE. Okay, so we are talking about European Union as the largest, followed by Brazil, India, then USA, Saudi Arabia also, and others. Now I want to give a certain perspective about Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is also a net importing country. Okay. And it also imports a lot of goods, especially agricultural goods from US. And because Saudi Arabia is a part of GCC, of Gulf Cooperation Council, and we'll see what it means in a bit from now, Saudi Arabia also acts as a re-export market. Likewise, even UAE acts as a re-export market, right? So when we buy from Saudi Arabia, essentially we could be buying US produced goods, but buying it out of Saudi because Saudi has already imported it. Next, please. So these are all the products. It's a list of top products that we import. Okay. And most of these products are presented here among all of us. So we should feel good that we are promoting what sells here. Next. So this is a key slide to say what are the opportunities and challenges. Opportunities lie primarily in the fact that we love US produced goods. We love them because we believe in the quality and the compliance that they go through before sending the products to us in this part of the region. That's to do with US. Secondly, our currency is pegged to US dollar, right? So it gives us a certain stability in transactions. We don't have to keep on varying the prices in the market based on the exchange rate, etc. So that gives us an advantage in working with US products, right? Now, what are the challenges? Like any other affluent market, we are spoiled for choice. Okay, we have a lot of great and better and bigger brands available from all the countries. Okay, all the developed countries, be it US, Canada, UK, Germany, and neighboring countries, as well as from India, right? So we are spoiled for choice, because of which the market is, of course, saturated and the prices have to be competitive. So at times, all the producing countries who are producing quality products may not feel that they're getting the price for the quality that they offer. But it's not about the quality that you offer as a country, but it's also about the quality that we can get from other countries. And some of this, of course, it's not fair, but it goes back to logistics. Of course, the European Union is closer to us, proximity. India is closer, and so on. So the prices have to be managed in a much more smarter way so that you can stay competitive, right? Another thing is, in a small country of 10 million, we have 195 nationalities. Okay. Of course, dominated by Indians and some of the Europeans and many other nationalities here. So their preferences for food are quite different, right? And they all prefer their own home food. So you will not be able to get an advantage from having your food targeted at all the 10 million people, because no, not all 10 million people would go for your food. It depends on your positioning. Okay, it depends on what your product has to offer. But as we know that one of the products is tomato, for example, it has a wider appeal. We have nuts. Absolutely 100% of the customers will be using nuts, right? So we have mass appeal products, mass in the sense of 195 nationalities, not in terms of mass reach. So we have products which appeal to nearly all the nationalities, and hence then we have to see how we can maximize their availability, right? One of the things is, it's not a cheap market to make your brands well known. Okay, it takes you time to make your brands well known by promoting it with the help of your distributor. So you should be ready to invest a bit and then move forward. It's not a market wherein you can sell some product and forget about it. You have to wait for it to grow on consumers and make it their daily staple food on their dining table. Next. While we have been talking about UAE so far, one important point is that UAE is what it is. It's a gateway to the region. We talked about Gulf Cooperation Council, right? Which is Saudi Arabia, Oman, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain. Okay, now why is it a gateway? Okay, there are two important factors. One relates to the UAE and one relates to the entire GCC. Now, when the GCC was formed, okay, these 6 countries, they talked about cooperating with each other, right? And they said that together we will attract import duty only once, and that will also be only 5%. Okay. So the import duty in any one of these countries is charged only once. So if your point of entry of your product is the UAE, then the UAE will charge you 5% as import duty. Okay. And from here, you can re-export your product to Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain without any further duties. Okay, that is one advantage. Of course, there are a lot of terms and conditions, such as when you import the goods into the UAE, okay, then the container should not be partly offloaded for UAE and then the other part goes to Saudi. No, it has to be the full container and so on. So your shipping agent will be able to guide you better. But remember, across the 6 countries, you can pay the duty only once at 5% and make sure that your products are available across all the 6 countries. That's one. Why is UAE the gateway to the region, to this region? And that's what a lot of products keep coming into UAE, and from here they get re-exported because all the facilities and the documentation is so simplified and it's so quick to be tackled in the UAE that people find it very easy to do business in the UAE and then re-export it from here. Okay, so these are the two main reasons. Can we move on? Next, please. Yeah. This is a repetition of the earlier slide, just as a reminder to say, where we stand. Yes. Next, please. Sorry. So once again, we just discussed why UAE is leading the region for all these reasons, which is we are through it all, even though I keep saying we are a small country, we are the second largest after Saudi Arabia, because, the bigness is always relative. We are talking about Qatar being 1 million population, Kuwait being another 3 million population, Bahrain being less than 1 million, and so on. So we are the second largest after Saudi Arabia, right? And we have diversity in the population. We talked about imports of agricultural goods, etc. And all of this makes us very important in terms of leading the region. Next, please. Okay. What are the consumption drivers, right? We talked that tourism is a major source of income. And remember, tourism is coming from, of course, where would tourists eat? You have flights where they have to be served food. Then you have restaurant, you have the hotels where they stay in, right? So everywhere you need to have diversity of this food to offer to these tourists, right? And tourists are coming from all over the world, right? So the diverse food will also go a long way in offering it to the tourists, right? And here what helps the tourists is that the food is very safe to consume because we have very high standards for cooked food compliance, and there are a lot of Dubai municipality checks which happen in the restaurants, in the kitchen, and for the staff and their hygiene. So usually we do not have any case of food poisoning or, food not being up to the mark. So that makes everybody feel so safe about eating food on the road and on the go. We do not have street food per se, but we do have smaller restaurants where also one can eat food equally safely, right? Then it all again comes down to everywhere that tourists and we go, we look for organic, natural, and high fiber food for health reasons. And over a period of years, we have realized over the generations that staple foods such as rice, bread, pasta, this kind of food makes you more fat and makes you eat less protein, right? So we are moving from that and moving more towards healthier alternatives as well as convenient alternatives, the food that we can eat on the go. Yeah, next, please. Now, one of the important thing, I think we have one of the companies here, right, which makes cranberry prunes and walnuts snack packets. So snacking is a very important industry to remember, right? Because dining out and snacking are two very important categories, and getting good food to snack on is equally vital. And these are all growing categories because even the millennial population is much more health aware. Okay, unlike the earlier generation, they were not health aware and they were really spoiled for choice. Here, the millennial population is making choices in favor of their health and in favor of maintaining their body and health, right? So giving them good snacks is a good option for us to develop our business with. Okay, and all of us are in the segment of prepared food, fresh fruits, then not poultry this time, but tree nuts and other health products such as tomato-based paste that can be used even for making pasta, right? So these are the products that we are looking at. Moving on. Now, okay, this is most of this we have already talked about, so I might just skip this, the next one. Yeah, the next slide, yeah. Now, so now we know how the country is and what are the trends in terms of what food we eat, and we know what are the drivers, right? So you need to understand the profile of your consumers. As I said, 88% of the people here who stay in the UAE are expatriates. The only reason that the expatriates can stay in the UAE is because they're all working here. At least the husband or the wife works here and the others are sponsored by the working member of the family and the company. So everybody who stays here is primarily to work. It's not a place to retire and live, right? So we are your consumers. So right from people who have been, children who have been born and brought up here for Emiratis to the children who have been born and brought up for expatriates such as us, they're all your consumers. And this is, to that extent, it's a young country because there is a lot of population growth coming from young generation and new babies being born, and those who have grown now over the past 20 years, right? And they are the ones who are making these very wise choices about their consumers. So we are talking about all plant-based vegan food, collagen drinks, and probiotic or prebiotic supplements, yogurts with less sugar, but yet being prebiotic, probiotic, and so on, right? So wellness is a very important concept. So much so, currently what we also have is a health month until we have a month of October, okay, wherein we all are encouraged to go and work out in open gardens and open parks, and all the events which are held, be it yoga or Tai Chi or anything else, they're all for free, and these are all group events, okay? So the Crown Prince himself is involved with this. So we are all encouraged to go out, enjoy the outdoors, and also work out every day. So that is becoming a part of us. Marathons, working out, yoga, exercise, and all of this is also actually moving towards the kind of food that we eat. It dictates the type of food that we eat and how we say healthy. Next, please. Okay. I've just taken 2-3 examples of what we are based on the participants that we have here. Okay. One of the, of course, we specialize in importing nuts from US, and almonds is the highest import that we get, or almonds is the highest export for you from US to UAE. Okay. So total imports of all these nuts were about $600 million last year. Okay. Out of which the top import market share was from US, we imported 52%, or about $300 million worth of nuts last year. India 20%, Iran 8%, China and Chile also. Okay, but of course significant is US, and from US we always buy primarily the almonds and walnuts. Okay, so these are the things, and this has been the case for years and it has not changed, and we don't think it will change also. So where do these almonds or walnuts go? Okay, we will see it partly later on, but let me just complete that thought as I'm talking to you. You have three types of buyers for these nuts. Okay, one is the first type of buyer is a wholesale buyer who buys it in bulks in 8-10 containers every month from US to the wholesale market called Alras market, right? That's where they import it, and from here then he exports it to the neighboring countries. He sells it to the smaller retailers who in turn pack it in their own packs and then sell it under their brand name. This is one. Second option is that big retailers such as Lulu and Spinneys, they buy the nuts in bulk directly from US, and then they pack it in their own facility. They're big enough to buy it in bulk and big enough to have their own packing facility, right? So these are the two things. The third one, as I explained to you, is that in Alras market, which is a wholesale market, from there, the bulk also get exported to other GCC and Middle East as well as African countries. So this is where the imported product can also go. Okay, but a lot of consumption is also within the country itself among the resident and the tourist population. Next, please. Talking about dates, again as an example, we grow dates here, okay? But our variety is not Majdool dates. And we all know Majdool is what, is gold standard in dates. So what happens is we do import and then re-export as well. So as a result of which, our exports of dates in 2021 was about $293 million. And out of which our import was $147 million. Okay, so net trade again was $146, which is a difference between the two. We do grow dates, as I said, but they are all small in size, etc. And also what happens is when we import dates, which are the fresh dates, and then we process them into dried dates, and they go as made in UAE. So they're not necessarily grown here, but they're processed here and then sent abroad, and that is what actually makes the export number bigger than what we can actually produce over here. Okay, and here it shows us what are the main destinations of exports of dates, which are of course India, Morocco, and all these countries where there's a consumption of dates, but there is no production of dates. Okay, and we also import dates, as you can see, from Saudi Arabia and Iraq and Pakistan and Jordan and Palestine. Now, a lot of Jordan and Palestinian dates are Majdool dates. Okay, we have no idea, okay, as to why the US Majdool dates have not been captured here. The only reason could be it's a smaller number, okay, because we are talking about big numbers here. But yes, US Majdool dates are quite popular, and when you all come here, we can take an opportunity and visit some outlets, and you will see US Majdool dates here, okay, which are imported into the country. Next, please. Yeah, next. Thanks. As I said before, even though we have agreements in place, the basic tax structure remains irrespective, right? So what are these? It's very simple to calculate. We have an import duty of 5% across all the products except live animals, okay? So that's import duty of 5%, that's minimum. And I'm not discussing tobacco or alcohol or other products which are not allowed by the country to be imported, right? In general, import duty of 5%, VAT of 5%. And from next year, we'll also be paying a corporate tax of 9%. So we as consumers see costs will escalate because of corporate tax, which we have not been used to. We have not been paying any direct taxes. Indirectly, we do pay a lot in terms of cost of living, right? One very, what should I say, very revolutionary change which happened in the business area was that all these years, that means until 2021, all the 88% of the expat and whoever was doing business here could do a business only by having one of the Emiratis as the local sponsor. That means technically the local sponsor's name was on the paper, on the trade license. He was not necessarily contributing much, but he was, of course, a cost element for the business because the business had to pay him everything, something every year, right? And plus, the ownership was also with the local Emirati by being 51% shareholder. In 2021, at the peak of COVID, the government removed this rule. They said, no, anyone who is a resident here can be 100% owner of their own company. So we ourselves also were one of the first ones to go and get 100% ownership of our companies, okay, than to keep the local sponsor to simplify our operations. Okay, so this is a breakthrough, and that's how businesses always will further flourish here. Next, please. Now, this was one aspect. Now we are going to see the tourism that we talked about. How is the tourism supported? The number of hotel establishment has grown. Okay, of course, 2020 was the COVID year, but yet, the hotels were empty at that time. After that, we continued with the hotel construction, and it has even gone up further high this year, but we don't have the numbers. So we have so many hotel establishments, over nearly 1,200, and the rooms are 194,000 rooms, which are available. And all these hotels together have hosted 19 million people. Okay. Now we are talking about hotels in Abu Dhabi, Dubai, Sharjah, Ras Al Khaimah, and all the other Emirates, right? So as a result of which, we have been able to have so many rooms and so many people hosted, right? And their revenue in the last year was a staggering 28 billion, or a plus 70% over the year earlier. Okay. Now, this year, 2023, okay, when we believe is going to be a phenomenal year for the hotels, guests, and also for the food industry, because we can see and feel the number of people being much more on the roads, being many more in the hotels, in the restaurants, the traffic, everything is much higher. Okay, and we believe all these numbers are going to be further high because of that, right? And then it's not only the tourists who come in, but we also travel within the country, and the domestic tourism also accounts for that because of staycations. So this is an important segment. Now, what does this tell you? When it is an important segment, you need to have your product sizing, packaging, everything catering to the hotels as well. Otherwise, you're missing out on at least 80% of the total market. Okay, because if retail buys, let's say $1 million worth of goods, hotels and restaurants would be together buying 7 million worth of goods. So we are talking about 7 times the business opportunity lies in hotels or the HoReCa and food service and catering industry. So that's a very important segment, and you need to have product and packaging preposition catering to the HoReCa industry. Next, please. Okay. We have a very small food processing industry. Okay. And that is where government actually introduced the norm to say you don't need to have a local partner. You can go ahead and have your own industry here, right? Because we have only 568 food and beverage processors in the country. And most of these, okay, because we anyways have to bring in the ingredients. So for most of them, what we do is usually we buy the product in bulk and then we pack it here. That's a value addition that we make. And then we sell it locally as made in UAE, but product of US or product of India, wherever it is from, right? Likewise, I said about dates also, we bring them here, okay, and then they are re-exported, right? That's product of UAE. So this is what happens in terms of processing industry is something that is for any enterprise. If the enterprise wants to cater to the region of Middle East exclusively, then this is a good place to start their business, right? In terms of food processing, manufacturing, so that you can avail of taxation policies as well as low labor costs. Okay, and these are some of the numbers which support that. And we have not been, only limited to Horeca and retail, but our e-commerce business has also been growing. But from our research, it shows that e-commerce business is not yet so strong in food industry, but it's much more strong in non-food industry. Okay, but it's a matter of time that it will grow faster, and we have to be ready for it because this is also one of the sustainable practice. Next, please. Yeah. So what is the market structure? Okay, that is very important for you to understand. So the place where people like me as a consumer would buy goods from is primarily hypermarkets and supermarkets. When you come to Dubai, your first day we're going to spend in market visit, which is a Sunday, right? So you will see where your consumers, such as us as families, go and shop, which is hypermarkets and supermarkets. And this is where we'll go and shop, which is 90% of local consumption for resident population happens there. But hotels, restaurants, and catering, okay, consume bulk due to tourism. And as I said, it could be 1:7 proportion between hypermarkets and hotels and catering industry. And so it's important that you should keep that in mind as you grow your business here. Okay, and wholesalers are primarily for re-export to neighboring countries of GCC and sometimes also to Africa, because a lot of African buyers come in here, they buy for cash and then they take the goods with them. Next, please. So we saw the market structure. I talked about retailers where we go and shop. So who are these retailers? These are Carrefour, Lulu Hypermarket, yeah, Union Corp. All these are Corp societies and the smaller outlets like Almaya and Choitrams. They are not as small, okay, but they are smaller in a relative sense of Carrefour and Lulu Hypermarket, okay. Now, we have had one of the inbound mission from the Middle East to California last year, and you can see here Choitrams, the second last one from here, right? They launched 3 brands from that particular trade mission that we had. Okay, this was in the month of March, and just they have launched 3 brands after that, after meeting with the suppliers in California, right? So this is how the market is ready to buy your products if they're properly positioned and if they're properly matched with the requirement of the consumers here. Okay, so these are your top retailers. Moving on. How do you reach your retailers? You reach your distributors with the help of distributors. Okay, I talked about Spinneys as a retailer. They also have a distribution arm, which is Alseed. I talked about Choitram as a retailer, and they also have a distribution arm. And when I talk about these top distributors, they are not only stationed in UAE, but they are also present in all the GCC countries or some of the GCC countries, if not all, right? So that is what should help you to focus on bigger retailers. Bigger or top distributors, provided you have a range which will match with their reach. Okay, this is only an example. Okay, moving on. This was a slide which I never thought would be a part of our presentation. Okay, and especially it was not there last year, and when John was also participating in last year, but a lot had changed between last year and this year as far as alcohol as a category is concerned. Okay, earlier only Dubai had alcohol outlets. Okay, from this year even Abu Dhabi has alcohol outlets, and they have primarily opened these outlets within hotels. in hotels, and also these are the same companies who have had shops here. They have gone and extended their reach in Abu Dhabi, because Abu Dhabi has opened up for alcohol consumption, which was not the case anymore before, right? So, for example, when you look at MMI is partly owned by Emirates, which is Maritime Mercantile Corporation, and it is also partly owned by, it's also partly owned by, of course, in turn by the Sheikh himself, right? Now, MMI has opened up branches also in Abu Dhabi. Then you have all the duty-free shops in Sharjah, Abu Dhabi, Dubai are the target market for alcohol exporters from US. We have African Eastern, which is, you saw the retailer as Spinneys, you saw the distributor of retailer Spinneys as Al Seer, and then we are now seeing African Eastern being the importer and distributor of alcoholic beverages, right? And these are all the other smaller stores like High Spirits, Windmill in Abu Dhabi, and we have Peninsula, Barracuda, sellers on the northern sides of Emirates, such as Ajman, Mulqaim, etc. Okay, moving on. So far we saw the market structure. We saw who are the top retailers, who are the top distributors. We also saw about alcohol market and how it has come to growth. Having said that, so if you want to reach this market, we have to understand what is the route to reach out to this market. Okay, you are the international producer, and you have to have some buyer who could be a distributor or a wholesaler or an importer, direct importer, like the retailer himself, or a customer who's buying your products for any reason and selling it in this market. Okay, and then who will the customer sell it to, or for what purpose? It will be either for food service or for end users. So if a smaller customer buys it, it could be for end user, either for distribution in retail or just for an e-commerce platform, right? So at every stage of this channel of distribution, there are certain considerations. So what are these considerations? The first consideration that you will have as an international producer is, will it be a full container load or a less than full container load? Okay. Now, being a smaller country and because of trial shipments, it could be a consolidated container. And we have containers, we have consolidators who are based in the key cities such as New Jersey, New York, and even in California, right? And we can also help you to get introduced to them so that they can consolidate, they can put stickers on your product in Arabic, and your product can seamlessly come in over here, right? And they will also help you with registration, or we can help you with registration, label assessment, and approval. And all of this will be done on your name. You don't have to worry if it will be done by the distributor, but no. Whoever owns the product gets registered, irrespective of who applies for registration. Okay. Some of the things that you might worry about is the payment terms. It's purely a matter of discussion and agreement between you and the buyer, right? Now, the buyers are quite used to having first shipment going at 100% advance, and then slowly the terms getting a bit more lenient in terms of as a relationship and the trust builds. But all the payment terms are always mentioned in the agreements. This is one country, UAE, where agreements are respected by law, and if a local company does not respect the agreement for any reason, and if they break one of the terms, the government does not take it lightly. Okay, so you have a strong support of the government here also if you have an issue in terms of your local importer here not conforming with the payment terms or any other clause in the agreement. Okay, that's one. When you want to come in with all these considerations, you want to know who's your buyer and distributor. So you need to know what is the type of importer suitable for my products. So at the end of this presentation, I have requested you that to find out who's the right type of importer for you, we would like to receive your product catalogs And also tell us a bit more in terms of who's your target customer. Are you looking at HoReCa, or are you looking at retailer, or are you also looking at private label? Okay. So as as an importer, your importer could be a distributor. So what does a distributor do? The distributor will supply branded products. Like you have the whole range of sun-dried tomatoes, right? The packaging is good. It has your own brand name. We don't have to make it anything else but sell it here. So the distributor is, we will identify distributors for you and get you to meet with you during the exhibition or the trade show if you want to sell your branded products, right? And the distributor in turn will sell it to food service buyers such as the hotels and the restaurants, retailers, small wholesalers, and exporters, depending on the type of the product. If you are looking at a direct import by the retailer, because you cannot find a distributor who has an who does not, who cannot distribute your product across all retail chains, right? So you are talking to, let's say, one retailer like Spinneys or Lulu or Carrefour, right? Then the consideration could be, does Spinneys or Carrefour want it under their own label, which is a private label or a store brand? Or are they asking you to give them an exclusivity in distribution? So imagine if your importer is Spinneys. So Spinneys is a retailer and they also have a distributor, which is Alseer. Okay. So then they can say, we will import it for our own stores, plus our distribution arm will also distribute it. So we want exclusivity, right? So these are some of the thoughts that you'll have to address as you go forward. And wholesaler as a concept applies primarily for the nuts, and wholesaler will buy to give it to the local packers and to the local retailers, as well as will take care of the exports. So this is your route to market. Yeah. Moving on. I think I just covered that in detail, but one just part over here. Can we please go back? Okay. When you're talking about the distributor, one of the major considerations for you is the investments. Okay, it's not different in US, right? If you're distributing a branded product, you have to have listing fees, shelf rentals, and you have to support your brand to grow it with marketing and sales promotions, right? So that's a major consideration. But if a retailer is importing it only for display in their own shop, then these considerations will not apply. Then it will primarily be a price negotiation as to how effective can you be in terms of giving him the least expensive product so that he can either increase his margin or use some of that margin for promoting the product in his stores. Yeah. Next, please. Yeah. Okay. So this summarize what are the UAE market entry considerations. Okay. We have to understand the market, which we have done in general. We have to now understand the market in terms of categories. What is the basic thing that we need to do together? We have to understand who's your competition and what is the sizing pricing of those competitors in the market. When we take you to the retail outlets during your store check visit on that Sunday before the trade show starts, you should be able to, we'll guide you to see your own competitors in different outlets, and you should be able to get an idea, because when your buyers come, they will have an idea about your competitors. We want you also to be aware of the local market and the competition so that you can have an intelligent dialogue with your potential buyers. Okay. In terms of label compliance, and we will guide you. It's label compliance, people, all the manufacturers are usually worried, but there is nothing to worry, because if you're bringing in product, okay, which has all the ingredients which are allowed to be used for consumption, and there is nothing which has alcohol as an ingredient or pork as an ingredient, it's absolutely fine. Your products will get approved easily by Dubai municipality. We have to do, we have to identify the right distributors for you to come and meet with, for them to come and meet with you during the exhibition. We are going to do a bit differently this year than last year. In addition to getting them to meet with you, we also want to pre-sell your products to them. What I mean by that is, as I said, we are going to request you to give us your brochures, etc., and circulate it beforehand, okay? And talk to these distributors beforehand. And then we're going to tell them, okay, now you know who the sellers are, start the dialogue and make sure that you come and close the deals during the trade show. This is what we would like to do so that you will have a meaningful visit in terms of meeting with the potential buyer or the distributor. Okay, this is what we would like to do. Then the distributor finalization by you. For any of these, you have a lot of guidance. You have US Commercial Service Office, you have USDA office, you have us in terms of guiding you about closing the deals, and also in terms of checking different parameters of the agreements. Okay, so you will have a lot of guidance whenever you want to finalize agreement. And of course, then go in for launch and the announcements, etc. There is again enough of guidance around. And once again, you'll have these considerations, shipment size. My personal suggestion is be flexible to start off with a small size, because that is when we talk about our country being small. And that's the main reason we keep saying that our country is small. So you be flexible for your size of the shipments. Okay. You will need to invest, because retailers, to be in the retail outlets, it costs a lot, and we'll see how much it is. Regulatory compliance is that we believe and we advise all our customers that before you ship the product, get the label approved, get your product registered. That way your product will not be held at the port or by customs, because they will see it on the system. Your product is already registered, it is already approved. So they will only do a random check in terms of the product testing to check ingredients match with what is on the label, and then they will release it, right? So there has to be things which should be done before to make it a seamless process for you, and a quick process also. Moving on, please. Yeah. Now, this is a big slide, but it only tells you two points, which is customs duty, which is nothing but the import duty, which we talked about, is 5%. Okay. And this is all again the Gulf standardization policy, etc., that we talked about. And another thing is that for alcoholic products, it's 50% duty, and tobacco is a 100% duty. One thing which is not here is anything which is in the sugar, with sugar, it's called as an excise tax and not customs duty. That will have another 50% duty. Okay. The good thing for you is that most of the currencies of the GCC or the Middle Eastern countries are pegged to the dollar. Okay. So there are no price fluctuations that you or we have to deal with. And that makes it easier to make projections. Yeah, moving on. This is a standard price structure that I shared even last year. This is just to give you an idea about variables. This is also available in Excel. I can share it with Rebecca and Celia after this, and they can share it with you for you to plug in the numbers. So what does this mean? I've taken an example of an edible oil and named it Delight. Okay, country of origin USA. Each pack is 1.5 liter. Again, you have to be clear about the terms that we use, whether it is metric terms or the other terms, and you have to follow those for our country. So we're talking about liter and not gallon, and 1.5 liters, and there are about 6 of these in one carton, right? Let's say unit price of a carton, because carton is your selling unit, is $20.95, okay, from you to the buyer here, okay, which is essentially the CIF price, including the cost, insurance, and freight. So on the CIF price, you'll be paying a 5% import duty. Then you'll also be paying a 5% VAT, or the value added tax. Nothing can change on it, right? That's one. Then we have estimated a clearance cost. Now, again, this is an estimate. We have estimated at 8% based on different things that we have seen in terms of how much does it cost on an average to clear goods, right? That means different fees that you have to pay for Dubai municipality, for customs, for storage, for taking it out, transportation, and all of that would come up to 8% of your total product cost on CIF basis. Okay, this is an estimate, it can change. Now, based on this, if you add all these numbers, the landed cost to you, the landed cost of your products to the customer is nearly now, 24.72, or it's nearly 20% more, right? Now, moving on, when we see that, this is where your customer is important. So let's say your customer is a local distributor. So now the distributor has bought all the goods from you for 24.72 as the carton price. Then what happens? Now this is where he has to now price it up. Why does he have to price it up? Because he has to make his own markup, and he has to make his own markup, and from that markup he has to pay for his warehousing, his people, and the entire sales and storage operation that he does, right? Sales, marketing, warehousing, everything. So usually the distributor's markup is in the range of 42%. Okay. I've taken it as an average between 30 to 50%. So I've taken an average of 42%. Now, this is also because the cost of doing business is so expensive. Yeah, because our cost of living and standard of living is very high. So this is about 42%. Now, another thing is that he also gives additionally a markup for the retailer, right? Because retailer also has to make money. So he gives a markup or a rebate to the retailer based on the volume, which is about 18%. So the distributor says, okay, if you buy 1,000 cartons from me, I'll give you another 10% or 12%, but up to 18%, okay, off on the price or the cost. So the cost of the retailer is, let's say, 39.55, and now it's a retailer's markup for the price that he will charge to the consumers. That will be at least 25% for the operation that the retailer runs, and hence, eventually, what you started selling at 20.95 as a carton price, okay, to the consumer, it will be nearly $50, okay? So you're looking at from $21 to $50, and this is how the money is spent, okay? So this is all based on formula, and as I said, these are all ballpark figures, not exactly benchmarks, but this is always negotiable, okay? And one important thing that I want to tell you all is that while you may want to start the calculation from cost upwards, right? It's important to see your competition and understand what is the price to the consumer is, and then work backwards. You say, what should be my cost to the distributor so that I can have a certain price parity or a price premium, which is a part of my pricing strategy, okay? This is just some food for thought for you all to consider, and hence we'll share with you the Excel sheet if you want. Yeah, can you move on? Okay, so this sheet just explains what we saw. One thing which was not there in that Excel sheet was the listing fees amount. I mentioned it, but I did not say it. I'm sorry, I did not write it in that, which is to list your product. What is listing? Okay, each product has, of course, a barcode, right? Now, to upload that one barcode across all the outlets of a chain like Carrefour or Lulu or anyone else, right? They charge something like $300 per barcode per outlet. Okay. Now we have companies like Lulu and Carrefour who have in excess of 100 outlets, right? So can you imagine for one barcode how much you'll have to spend, and hence how much will you have to spend for all the other products that you have across those 100 outlets, right? Now this is where the distributor's role comes into play. So distributor negotiates to say, I'm already giving you so many other products and I'm already giving you so much of money. Please, can we look at, instead of $300 per barcode, can we look at $150 per barcode? Okay. So that is when the strength of the distributor is of important, and the strength of the distributor comes from the number of products and the brands that he distributes. Okay, and his, of course, relations with the retailer, right? So as I said again, this is about the listing fees, which is separate from the price structure that I have shared with you. We have mentioned about the back-end markup there being 18%. So that is something, again, the distributor negotiates with the retailer to say, no, we cannot, we need to hire 80 centimeter into 5 shelves, but we can only give you so much. And against that, we need to have displays of, every weekend when there's a promotion, we need to have so many displays. We need to have such a visibility based on the planogram and so on, right? That's how it works. It is also expected by the distributor towards you that you will support certain brand building activities. Okay, and it's for you to keep that much of a margin with you so that you can support a distributor for brand building, which in turn will create a pull. The last thing about regulatory environment was, of course, to understand what are the documentation required. They're, of course, the same documents. Yeah, we can go to the next one. Yeah. Yeah, so there are always, I mean, they're the same documents as what you would use in US. Okay, but importantly, they all need to be original, right? One of the things that here Dubai municipality insists on, whether you bring in 100 cartons or 2,000 cartons, you must have the original health certificate from your country of origin for the shipment, for that particular shipment coming in along with the shipment. In the sense, your clearance agent should get the original document. Health certificate is quite expensive. Okay, that increases your cost. But that is what is increasing the cost for all the other competing products also. Okay, but all these documents ensure that, again, your clearance is seamless. Yeah, next one, please. Food labels and ingredients, as I said, as long as all the ingredients are approved and labels have the information about allergy advice, if any, and if they have information about any ingredient which is, let's say, which is in excess or less, for example, sodium or sugar, there has to be a mention of that, the source of that, and then it's a standard packaging format, and you go with the percentage numbers from high to low and so on. And you can have your labels approved. Again, as I said, before you ship your product, get your label approved. Before you ship your product, have your product registered. Okay, because it often happens that if the label is not approved, after that the shipment comes here and sits here for 1, 2, 3 months, and it's a loss to you and to your distributor. Your distributor will also guide you the same to say do it before. Because one of the consideration is that, suppose if your product has a shelf life of 1 year, it takes, let's say, 3 to 4 weeks for the product to arrive here. So it's already 1 month old. Okay. Then if it sits without approval, okay, in the warehouse, there is, of course, a cost to that too. It's also losing out on its shelf life by sitting in a certain place. Now, one of the rules that we have here is that 3 months before the expiry of the product, okay, we have to sell out the product from the shelves of the supermarket with promotion. Okay, we cannot have a short expiry of 1 month expiry or 2 months expiry sitting on the shelf. So it is important that we don't lose out on that time by doing proper pre-planning and execution. Okay, now this is done. Can we go on to the next one, please? Yeah. So time and again, over the years of our 14 years of work in the UAE, we have seen a lot of companies keep coming again and again, and we like them. Okay, they keep coming again and again. We know them now. So one of the things, I mean, I had this discussion with someone and I said, what do you think is important? Is it participation or partnership? I mean, is it participation that gives you any business, or is it the partnership? The answer could be obvious about partnership, but the fact is that, by participating year on year, if you're not getting a partner, then you really have to see if the market is right for you or not, right? And that's where now we have started focusing on you getting better partners and having good partnership in the country. So, as you know, the show is from 19th of February to the 23rd of February. On Sunday, the 18th of February, we'll all be going out for a store check visit that will be organized by us to show you the retail trade. Unfortunately, on Sunday, the wholesale market for nuts will be closed, so we cannot go there, right? But this is what it is. And I mean, Gulfood has become the benchmark for food standard in the country, and not only in the country but in the region. So much so that in 2023 May, in the month of May in 2023, Saudi Arabia hosted Saudi Food, which was a debut show, the first show in Riyadh. Whereas Gulfood is already over 20 years old, but Saudi Food was launched just this year in 2023. And now, when I went to see Saudi Food, I realized that Saudi Food is also just waiting to become much bigger and much faster than the UAE Gulfood, because UAE Gulfood did not have a benchmark. But Saudi has a benchmark and they want to go. It's a spirit of competition. They want to be better and faster than UAE. So there is that show also, which is going to be there, and again driven by Gulfood. So once again, there are so many exhibitors, which is over 5,000 exhibitors in 125 countries, and so many new products, because a lot of awards are also given for product innovations. Like last year, again, we'll be very close to the cooking demonstration area, I think. So there are so many cooking demonstrations which happen, and these are all run by the different chefs and Emirates Culinary Guild, which is an association of all the chefs in the country, right? So you have a captive audience of F&B retailers and distributors, and you have to prepare yourself and your product to make it much more appealing for them, so that you can have an effective partnership at Gulfood 2024. Next, please. Okay. Now, this exactly what we discussed. So to give you more partnership or a better partnership, our promise to you is pre-arranged meetings, right? But we can be only as good as your products are, only as good as how you position it in your brochures and the tools that you supply to us to target the right audience for you in the UAE market, as well as we'll also be targeting others outside of UAE in the GCC countries. Those who are coming for the show, we'll be inviting them also to the booth to come and meet with you. But we'll also like them to be ready to come to meet with you. Okay, so that we would like them to be interested, and we would like you to make it as interesting as possible for them. Yeah, the next, please. Yeah, so for this, what we need is, as I said, brochures in PDF format, small size, and just tell us in your email what is your preference for distribution in retail or in food service. Typically, we advise, we would still do that, okay? But we'll still like to know what is your thought after going through this presentation and after understanding the market. Where would you like to see your product? Okay, but it is very different from what the market asks for. We'll advise you accordingly, and then we can agree and promote it according to that. Okay, so this is it. Any questions from you?
Mary, I think you're muted.
Sorry, who's muted?
I see it. Okay. So I was just curious, what is the deadline for this PDF format? Because you've given me so many new ideas of how to present our products in a meaningful way, that I want to make sure I get it done in time for you to have this. So what would your deadline on this be?
Is 2 weeks convenient for you?
Yes, that's perfect. Yes.
Well, that's what it is for all of us.
Thank you very much for this presentation. It was very interesting. Many of our products have very special attributes that we don't typically talk about, but it seems they're important in the presentation you just gave. So we will make sure we reformat a bit
Sure, sure, sure. That will be nice.
Do you happen
Okay.
to know if sulfur dioxide is of any issue in this product range in the show for this country?
I'll have to find it out for you. Honestly, I'm not so sure.
Okay, it's on all dried fruit. So if you buy dried apricots, then it's not.
Okay, on dried apricots, as in on dried
Well,
fruit.
I mean, it's on sun-dried tomatoes, but it's how you make apricots and all dried fruit. I just know we ran into a little bit of an issue in Japan because they think a tomato is a vegetable rather than a fruit. And sulfur was allowed on fruit, but not on vegetables. And they recategorized our products as vegetables. And so then it was an issue. So I just want to make sure that any of the products that contain sulfur dioxide, if there's an issue, we don't include them.
Okay, now what I will need from you to check this out, we will go to Dubai municipality and ask them this, but I will not be very intelligent about asking this question, because when you say your product is it used in the process or is it sprayed with that? I don't know. So if you can,
It's in the process. It's how you dry a sun-dried tomato, and it's in the process, but it is listed on the ingredient statement. So I could just send you, for instance, our nutritionals, and I could send you a label.
okay, okay, that's fine. And then we'll have to ask him if sulfur dioxide is allowed to be used in the process of drying, right?
Right.
I'm
And
just going to
also,
write it down.
also listed on the ingredient statement, there is there probably is I don't know, 5% residue. So it's on the ingredient statement. Just make sure that's allowed.
It doesn't have to be over there.
So I'll get all that to you sooner. And then
Yep.
we'll have the rest of our brochures and key objectives regardless ready in 2 weeks. That's terrific.
Sure, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you,
thank you.
Mary. I know
And
there was
and
some, yes.
I wanted to say your pricing structure also was excellent. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. I'm glad that you found it useful.